There is a scene in Teen Titans you have watched 100 times and never once taken seriously. Terra is standing in the middle of Titan's tower, her powers flickering out of her control, rocks rising and falling around her because she cannot make them stop. And she is telling her team exactly what is about to happen. They hear a scared teenager talking herself down. It was not insecurity. It was the single most accurate threat assessment made by anyone in that entire show, and not one person acted on it. Over the next few minutes, you are going to see every warning Terra gave the Titans, every time that warning got mistaken for insecurity, and the exact episode where the cost of not listening came due. To understand what Terra was right about, you have to understand what her power actually is, not what it looks like, what it costs her. Terra can move the earth itself, boulders, cliffs, entire sections of a city, all of it responds to her. On paper, that makes her one of the most powerful members of the team the moment she walks through the door. In practice, it makes her the most dangerous person in the room, and the difference between those two things is the whole story. Robin has training, years of it, discipline built one rep at a time. Cyborg has hardware, calibrated, tested, predictable. Raven has control, because control is the entire premise of her existence, the one thing standing between her and disaster. Starfire's power responds to how she feels, but even that follows a pattern she has lived with her whole life. Terra has none of that. Her powers are tied to her emotions, but nobody ever taught her what that means, and she going that out the same way everyone around her found it out, by watching things get destroyed. That is not a personality flaw. That is a live weapon with no safety being carried by someone who was never given the manual. Compare her to Raven for a second, because the show practically begs you to. Raven's power is also tied to emotion, also capable of leveling a city if it slips. The difference is that Raven grew up inside a structure built entirely around containing that risk. Monks, meditation, a lifetime of discipline before she ever set foot in the tower. Terra gets none of that infrastructure. She gets a costume and a welcome party. The show puts these two characters side by side on purpose. One raised inside a system built for exactly her kind of danger, one thrown into a team with no system at all, and then acts surprised when only one of them survives the season intact. So when Terra says she is scared of her own powers, that is not a teenager being dramatic. That is the one person in the tower who actually understands the physics of the problem. Go back far enough, and this is not even a new idea. In the original comics, Terra is not a scared kid who spirals. She is a villain from the first page, working for Slade's predecessor with no redemption arc waiting at the end. The animated series made a very specific choice the comics never made. It gave her a version of the warning system out loud, on screen, in her own words. And then it built an entire team around her who heard it and still did not change course. That is not an accident of adaptation. That is the writer making the exact argument this video is making and daring you to notice it. Here is how the Titans read her instead. They saw a new friend who needed encouragement, a kid who had been alone too long, who needed a family more than she needed a syllabus. And to be fair to them, that reading was not wrong. Terra had been drifting from city to city before she found them, running from her own powers because she believed, correctly, that she could hurt people. The Titans gave her the first place that ever felt like home. That part of the story is real, and it matters. But watch what they offered her in place of training. Beast Boy tells her, more than once, in more than one way, that she does not need to learn control. She just needs to trust herself and trust her friends. It sounds like the kindest thing anyone could say to a scared kid. It is also, functionally, medical advice from someone with no medical training, delivered with total confidence because it felt true, not because anyone checked whether it was. Nobody in that tower sits her down and says, here is a structured plan to get your powers under control. Here are the specific triggers we have identified. Here is what we do if this goes wrong in the middle of a fight. What she gets instead is reassurance, warmth, the sense that she belongs. All real, all valuable, and none of it is the thing she actually asked for. As a kid watching this show, you clock Terra as the one who messed up, the one who could not just relax and let herself be happy like everyone kept telling her to. Watch it again as an adult, and the read flips completely. She is the only person in the tower running an honest risk assessment on herself, and everyone around her keeps grading her on her mood instead of her mechanics. Go back and count how many times Terra directly tells the team something is wrong, and how many times the team answers with comfort instead of a plan. She tells them her powers feel unpredictable during a mission against Overload, when her control slips mid-fight and she nearly buries the team along with the enemy. The response is some version of, "Everyone has an off day. Do not be so hard on yourself." She tells Beast Boy more than once that she is afraid of what happens if she loses control completely. The response is some version of, "You will not. We believe in you." She asks, directly, whether the team would still want her around if her powers got worse instead of better. The response is reassurance about friendship, not a real answer about risk. And there is a fourth moment, the quietest one, the one nobody brings up. Terra asks Robin, the one person on the team who actually understands what structured training looks like, for real sparring, real drills, something with a curriculum. Robin, the most disciplined member of the entire team, the one who trained under Batman himself, does not take her up on it with the seriousness he gives his own training. He treats it like a bonding exercise instead of the intervention it actually was. If anyone on that roster had the tools to give Terra what she was asking for, it was him, and even he read the request as insecurity instead of a diagnosis. There is a fifth moment too, and it might be the saddest one. At night, when nobody is watching, Terra practices alone, stacking rocks in the dark, trying to build the control nobody would help her build in daylight. That is not the behavior of a kid who feels safe enough to fail in front of her team. That is the behavior of someone who has already concluded correctly that the tower is not actually set up to help her get better, only to make her feel good about staying the same. 5 separate moments, 5 separate direct warnings. 5 times the team answers a structural question about safety with an emotional answer about belonging. Not because they were careless, because it never occurred to them that the two questions were different. That is the entire tragedy, sitting right there in plain sight, 5 separate times. And none of them saw it as a pattern because each conversation felt complete on its own. Then Slade shows up. And here is the part that should genuinely bother you. Slade is the only person in the entire show who takes Terra's fear seriously as a technical problem instead of an emotional one. He does not tell her everything will be fine. He offers her training, specific, structured, results-oriented training, built around the exact thing the Titans never gave her, a plan for controlling power she did not understand. It does not matter that his motives are rotten. It does not matter that the training is a leash disguised as a lesson. What matters is that he is solving the actual problem she came to the team with in the first place, and he is the only one who bothered to treat it as solvable rather than something to be hugged away. By the time Terra becomes his apprentice, she is not choosing evil over good. She is choosing the version of help that came with a method over the version of help that came with a slogan. Everything after that point is the bill coming due. Titan's Tower gets torn apart, floor by floor, in a fight that only exists because the one member who could level the city was never given a real off switch. The team she loved gets attacked by the one person who actually understood how dangerous she was because she told them so herself months earlier. And the closest thing she got to a solution came from a man who wanted to weaponize her, not heal her. When Slade finally holds a volcano over the entire city as leverage, that is not a random villain escalation. That is the exact worst case Terra had been describing out loud since the moment she joined the team, arriving on schedule because nobody had done the work to prevent it. Watch the fight itself and it plays out exactly like the warning said it would. Terra does not overpower the Titans through some new ability. She overpowers them because they know her, because they trained beside her, because they are still, even mid-battle, reaching for the version of her they liked instead of defending against the version of her that was standing in front of them. Beast Boy hesitates. Robin hesitates. The one advantage the team had, actually knowing their opponent, becomes the exact thing that gets used against them, because knowing someone and having prepared for them turn out to be two completely different things. Slade did not create Terra's instability. He just noticed it was still an open problem when everyone else had already decided it was solved. But here is the part nobody talks about. Terra never actually stops warning them. Even after she is Slade's apprentice, even after the tower falls, there is a moment where she hesitates, where some part of her is still looking for a reason to be stopped talked properly instead of comforted out of the decision. The team's response, even then, is to appeal to friendship, to ask her to come back because they miss her, because they still care about her, because she belongs with them. Every single word of that is true. None of it addresses the actual mechanism that put her in Slade's hands to begin with. You cannot outlove a control problem. You can only out-train it. And across the entire arc, only one side of that equation ever showed up for Terra, and it was not the side that actually wanted what was best for her. That is the detail people skip when they talk about this story. They remember betrayal. They remember heartbreak. They remember Beast Boy standing in the rubble asking why. What they miss is that the why had already been answered out loud multiple times long before the tower ever fell. Scroll through how this arc gets discussed online and you will find the same framing over and over. Terra as the cautionary tale about trusting a villain. Almost nobody frames it as a cautionary tale about a team that never once asked the right question. That framing is not an accident either. It is easier to watch a friend get betrayed than to watch a friend get failed. So the story gets remembered as the version that costs the viewer less. And this is not just a Terra problem. Look at how often this exact shape repeats across the wider DC animated world. A young hero shows up with power they did not ask for and cannot fully explain. The team responds with warmth instead of a real training pipeline, and the gap gets filled by whoever is willing to actually teach, good intentions or not. It happens to Superboy, engineered and confused about what he even is, largely left to figure it out through trial and error instead of structured guidance. It happens to Raven's own early arc before the monks got involved. The pattern is not that these teams are cruel. It is that found family energy and functional risk management are two different skill sets, and most teams only ever build the first one. Terra is simply the version of this story where nobody course-corrected in time. Here is the reframe. Terra is remembered as the Titan who could not be trusted. The version of the story that actually happened is the Titan who could not be helped by the only people positioned to help her because they mistook comfort for competence. The Titans gave Terra a family. Slade gave her a plan. She needed both, and for most of the story, only one side of that was ever on offer. That is not a flaw in Terra's character. That is a flaw in how the team defined support. A group of heroes who are extraordinary individually can still fail completely at the one thing that actually mattered here, which was noticing that a scared kid asking for control is not the same as a scared kid asking for comfort, and answering the wrong question with total sincerity does not make it the right answer. The Titans never once asked whether Terra was safe to fight beside. They only ever asked whether she was happy. Those are not the same question, and by the time anyone realized that, the tower was already coming down. When Terra finally turns on Slade to save the city, when she takes the volcano into herself and becomes stone rather than let everyone she loved get buried, watch how the show frames it, not as a villain redeemed, as someone finally allowed to solve the problem she had been asking for help with the entire time, alone, at the highest possible cost, because nobody built her a way to solve it any earlier. She gets her control in the end. It just costs her everything to get it, because the help she actually needed only ever showed up once, from the wrong person for the wrong reasons at the last possible second. Ask yourself the question the Titans never asked. Not, does this person feel like they belong here? Ask, does this person have what they actually need to be safe here and to keep everyone around them safe too? Those questions can have completely different answers, and the gap between them is exactly where Terra fell through. Every team, in every version of this story, has someone quietly asking the second question while everyone else is busy answering the first. Terra was that person, asking it about herself, and nobody around her thought to answer it seriously until it was too late to matter. That is the actual ending of Terra's story. Not betrayal, not villainy. A warning that was accurate from the very first episode she appeared in, delivered to people who loved her too much to treat it like data. Being loved was never the thing Terra was missing. Being taken seriously was, and by the time anyone figured out the difference, she was already stone.